parents forged my signature for a $150,000 loan to fund my sister's dream wedding, and I wasn't even invited. I 33 a.m. recently received a phone call from the bank for the verification of identity for a loan of $150,000, which was strange because I hadn't applied for one, and that's how I ended up finding out that my parents had taken a huge loan from their bank to fund my golden child sister's dream wedding. Let me just make it clear, my sister and I have never been close, and she's always been a spoiled brat. I would say that it's all my parents' fault, but honestly, she's in her late 20s right now, and I think she has had enough time to change herself, but she hasn't bothered to do so. We stopped speaking a couple of years ago, and haven't really stayed in touch since then. Occasionally, when we meet at other family gatherings, we try our best to avoid each other, because we never got along in the past, and it's unlikely that we'll start getting along right now anyway. I think it's very evident that my relationship with my sister has never been the best, so it's all the more insulting that my parents decided to take out a loan and falsify documents, stating that I would become a co-signer for the loan, especially considering the fact that I wasn't even invited to the wedding that they were planning to fund with this loan. My sister has been with her fiancé for the past 2 years, and they got engaged a couple of months ago. I knew that I was not going to be invited, so I didn't think much about it, and neither did my parents speak to me about it. But then last week when I received that phone call from the bank, I caught my parents in a lie, and I decided to confront them right after the phone call. Initially I was still willing to believe that it might have been a misunderstanding, and the phone call was probably not intended for me. But that was just wishful thinking, because as soon as I confronted my parents, they admitted to it. Not only did they admit to it, they also told me that as her brother, I should be looking forward to contributing to the wedding in any way that I can, because it's my duty as her family. They told me that they had to take out a loan because they had taken a look at their finances, and it would be impossible for them to fund the entire wedding, which is what my sister had wanted. But they did not have the heart to decline the one request that my sister had for them, to cover the expenses of the wedding. So they thought it would be for the best to take out a loan, and they needed a co-signer, so they decided to use me for that. Since I had a good credit score, they even justified the fact that they did not contact me because apparently they knew that I was already not on good terms with my sister, and asking for something like this would alert me to their plans, and then they wouldn't even be able to add me as a co-signer. So they decided to go ahead without my consent, and they didn't even care that eventually I was going to find out, because by then the loan was going to be approved. They had forged my signature and stuff, and even gotten a hold of my personal details, so it was a piece of cake for them. But they hadn't counted on the bank to personally verify before they approved the application, and that's where they messed up. Obviously, after I found out what they had done, I was furious, and I told them that I was going to make sure that they paid for this. They tried to justify everything that had happened by saying that they couldn't let my sister down, because this was the one thing that she wanted from them. If I'm being honest, she has wanted a lot of things in the past, and my parents have never said no to her. So I think it's not about the wedding, it's just about their inability to decline anything that she wants, even if it comes at the cost of their own integrity and dignity. Both my sister and her fiancé are working, and from what I know they can definitely afford to have a decent wedding, if they want to fund it themselves. Maybe it won't be the dream wedding that my sister has planned, which is bound to be extravagant and grand, but at least they won't have to depend heavily on my parents. And I can't even blame my sister for all of this, because my parents could have just declined and told her that they need to look out for life after retirement, so they can't fund her grand wedding. That's what her in-laws did, and her fiancé is still in touch with them. So I don't understand why they think they have to bow down to the whims and fancies of a grown woman, or else she's going to throw a tantrum and stop speaking to them. Anyway, that's their dynamic. And if they find it convenient for them, then who am I to complain? But as soon as they drag me into the situation, it becomes about me as well, and that's what I was not okay with. I told my parents that I was going to sue them, and I was definitely going to speak to my lawyer and take action against them for falsifying documents. At first, they still continued to insist that this was my duty since I was family, but when they realized that I was serious about my threats, they started begging me not to do anything. To harsh, my mother started sobbing, which is her usual go-to move whenever things are not going her way. But my father told me that as a part of the family, it was my duty to stand by my sister and my parents when they needed me. He also said that my sister had just gotten engaged a couple of months back, and if I went through with my threats, it would reflect badly on the family, and this was not the right time to vent out my frustrations, because it could impact my sister's engagement. It was a really stupid argument, because it felt like he didn't even care about the fact that he literally committed a crime, and only about how this would affect my sister. And he just kept insisting on it, and it was really annoying. So I eventually just hung up after telling them that I was definitely no contact with them and I would be taking this to court. So they had to stay prepared for the consequences of what had happened. After ending the phone call with him, I decided to speak to the bank that had called me once more and requested a copy of the terms of the loan, so I could at least find out what was going on before I spoke to my lawyer. Now, before I had read the terms of the loan, I had decided that I was just going to go no contact with my family and not go public with what was going on. I was definitely planning on taking legal action against them for what they have done, because obviously it was illegal. But I had no intention of telling anyone about it, because I didn't want to create drama out of something so personal, since this was my family as well, and whether I liked it or not, I was related to them, so it would reflect on me as well. But after reading the terms of the loan, I actually decided to make sure everyone found out what kind of people they were, because it was absolutely unforgivable. The reason for that was one clause, which said that all the money that had been borrowed would have to be returned within 2 years of the loan. I had an issue with that because I've been telling my parents for the past 6 months that I am planning on starting a business, and they know for a fact that I've been looking forward to it and preparing for it for a really long time now. In fact, I'm even planning on quitting my job in the next couple of months, as soon as I have a couple of investors on board. Everyone knows that when you start a new business, you have to have enough money for yourself because there's no telling what might happen in the future. It's always a gamble to start something of your own, no matter how much you prepare. So, my parents knew about my plans, and they still went ahead and made me the co-signer of such a huge loan, not caring about whether I have my own plans or not. If they even defaulted on one payment, I would have to cough up the money required, and they did not even think that it was necessary to speak to me or get my consent before signing me up for something like this. I don't know why, but something inside just snapped. And after I went through the terms of the loan, I immediately called my lawyer and told him everything, and then I logged into Facebook and started looking for the account of the guy that my sister was engaged to. And here is where I think I might have gone a little too far anyway. It was not very difficult to find that account because even though we did not get along, my sister had never blocked me. So I went onto her profile, and from there I was able to find my future brother-in-law. I went to his account, typed out a message telling him everything that my parents had done, and to ask my sister if she knew what was going on, and if possible break off the engagement before it is too late for him to back out of it, because my family is clearly not trustworthy and he should just quit while he's ahead. Not just him, I also copied that message and sent it to his parents. And a couple of people had tagged in a bunch of family photos, just so that a lot of people would know what kind of people my parents were. And if I'm being honest, I kind of believe that my sister must have had some idea that they were up to things like this, and that's why I looked up her fiancé and sent all these things to him and his family. After that, obviously, things started going very wrong for my family. Not to mention the fact that I was also suing them, and they were going to be answerable to the bank for the fact that they had actually committed fraud, since I had never really signed those documents. So my parents definitely had a lot on their plates. I only spoke to them once, a couple of days after I had sent those messages to my fiancé and spoken to my lawyer, and they were hysterical because my sister had confronted them about what they had done, because apparently she did not actually know that they had roped me without my consent. In fact, she didn't even know that they had to take out a loan for the money that would be used to fund her wedding anyway. My sister confronted our parents, and they got into a huge fight where she was obviously mad at them because now she would have to return all the money that she had taken from them for all the advance payments that she had made to the vendor, since even though it was our parents' own money, she did not want anything to do with them anymore, and our parents were mad at her for being ungrateful, which I don't really think is as valid as a reason to be mad at them. But my parents were pretty hysterical, and they started blaming me for reaching out to her fiancé for no reason because now she's no longer speaking to them anymore, and I don't understand how this is my fault. But anyway, that's not even what I care about. I'm actually just here to ask about whether what I did with my sister was the right thing to do or not. Because after I sent those messages to her fiancé and his family, she reached out to me as well, saying that I had no reason to do that, and if I had a problem with what was going on, I should have just sorted it out with my parents, or sued them, instead of dragging her and her fiancé into it for no reason. She told me that she had no idea that our parents had done something like this, and if she had known, she never would have taken any money from them, or even told them to fund her wedding. But because of my baseless assumption that she had known, I had gone out of my way to create trouble for her, and now her fiancé and his family were rethinking the entire marriage. And it was happening all because I had not even bothered to speak to her and ask her if she had known about what our parents had done. I hate to admit it, but she does have a point. I should have just spoken to her before I went ahead and contacted her fiancé, because now everyone is doubting her. Like I said, when your family does something bad, it reflects badly on you as well, and I guess that's what's happening now. She also told me that even though we haven't gotten along in the past, it's not like she's a dishonest person, and I don't know about that for sure, but I'll have to admit that she doesn't really have that reputation. She is spoiled rotten to the core, entitled and really rude, but I wouldn't say that she has a reputation of being a liar or dishonest. So for me to cast aspersions on her character and do it so convincingly that even her own fiancé and his family, who have known her for a considerable amount of time, start doubting her, that was just not right. And the only reason they are even taking it seriously is that it's coming from a source that's really close to her own family anyway. I'm just wondering if I did the right thing with her or not, and if I should apologize. To be honest, I did not have any intentions of ruining her relationship with her fiancé. I just thought that she knew what our plans were up to, and that's why I contacted him, because I thought he should know what he's getting into, and maybe just in a little petty way. I wanted to get back in my family for being absolutely horrible to me. So either for telling my sister's fiancé that our parents are frauds and unnecessarily involving him in our family conflict. Update 1. So I decided to play it safe and told my sister that I genuinely did not know, that she had no idea that our parents had committed a crime like this. But honestly, judging by her past behavior, I thought that maybe she knew about it and just didn't care. Nevertheless, I was sorry that she was in trouble right now, and if she wanted to, I would speak to her fiancé and reach out to him again, to let him know that I had said I'd come from a place of anger and that he definitely should give the relationship a chance. She hasn't responded to that yet. But at least I did what I had to. I played it safe because I did not completely take the blame on myself, because honestly I don't think it's completely my fault. She and my parents have had a relationship like this forever, and she has always got what she wanted. So it wouldn't have been surprising if she had known about what they had done and had gone ahead with a plan, because she has never really cared about me. She can't blame me for believing that she would have encouraged this as long as she got what she wanted. At the same time though, I guess I kind of jumped to conclusions without speaking to her. And that was on me, so even though she doesn't entirely deserve it because she never was nice to me, I decided to apologize because getting married is a huge deal and I wanted my conscience to be clear. But whatever, that's done now, and I'm gonna be pursuing the court case against my parents. As of now, of course. The loan did not get approved, so the bank dropped the case against them. But I'm guessing the lawyer had something to do with it because he's pretty good. My lawyer is a close friend of mine. And I know for a fact that he's great as well, so I'm sure that I'm in safe hands and I'm not too worried about the procedure or even going to trial. In fact, I am hoping that it goes to trial, because I think my parents should be heavily punished for what they did. I feel like all the anger and frustration that I have held within myself for years is finally coming out, and it's like a dam has burst. Honestly, I had tried my very best to be on good terms with my parents, because after all they are my family, but they proved to me that they are not worthy of it. Now speaking of this, a lot of people had a lot of questions about why I'd still bother to keep in touch with my parents for so many years, even though I had known that for them, my sister is always going to be more of a priority as compared to me. And honestly, I didn't really have any answers for that, so that was part of the reason why I did not post any update until a week had passed, I guess. I was just trying to come up with a proper explanation for why I'd kept in touch with them, and why I was even planning on going no contact with them, instead of just exposing them in the first place. The truth is I've always made excuses for them, even though I was trying to do something of the sort. Just came up with some weak defense for what they had done, and why I couldn't retaliate in the same manner. It's just that I'm really non-confrontational, and I've always been like this right from the beginning. When I don't like somebody or some situation, I just remove myself from that place and distance myself from those people. But with my family, I was never able to do that. I managed to achieve that with my sister, at least to a certain degree, but with my parents, they would always emotionally manipulate me every time I would try to distance myself from them. It was like they wanted the best of both. They wanted to be biased towards my sister, but they also didn't want me to abandon them. And it took me a really long time to realize that, because until recently, I was ready to believe that they loved us both equally, but they were just more expressive and affectionate with my sister. The truth is they definitely did not love us both equally. They loved my sister, and with me, it was more of an obligatory relationship. They treated me like more of a backup kid, just in case things with my sister ever started going wrong. And it took me a really long time to realize that their first preference was always going to be my sister, and there was nothing that I could do to change it. So there was no point in sticking around and hoping for things to get better with my parents, because that was never going to happen. I had waited until I was in my early 30s for it to change. But if it hadn't happened until now, I think it unlikely that it's going to change in the future. And anyway, at this point, I really don't think that it matters anymore. I have spent more than enough time to win my parents over and do right by them. But now, I think it's about time that I started prioritizing myself first, instead of thinking about how they would feel. So that's what I'm going to do now. And that's why I'm planning on making sure that I win this thing. Update: so my sister's engagement got called off. And of course, she immediately decided to pin all of the blame on me. I had sent those messages to her fiancé 2 weeks ago, and I tried to make things right with her about 1 week back. And about 3 days ago in the evening, a bunch of people in the family started texting me about how my sister had just posted that she and her fiancé had decided to part ways. But they hadn't put up any reason, so they were coming to me to ask about what had happened because they wanted to gossip about it, obviously. Unfortunately for them, they didn't know that my sister had blocked me recently, so I didn't even know that they had called off their engagement. I felt a little bad about it initially, but right now I felt like I did the right thing, because the guy definitely deserves better, whoever he was, even if he was a terrible guy himself. Which he must have been if he had been with my sister for so long. He still deserved better, because I don't think there is anyone worse than her anyway. This morning, when I woke up, I was about to go make breakfast for myself, when I started hearing somebody banging at my door, relentlessly and constantly ringing the doorbell. Nobody really behaves like that normally, so I had guessed that it must have been someone from my family, and judging by the fact that my parents and I were going to meet in court in a couple of days, I guessed that it was probably my sister who was losing her mind, because she had all the reasons to be here in the morning. I didn't even bother going to the door, and shouted out from the living room that if she continued to bother me in the morning, then I would call the cops. I honestly didn't even care that her engagement had been called off. I had just woken up at that point, and I was really cranky anyway. She didn't make it any better by showing up at such a time and then trying to burst me around. So after I told her that I would call the cops, she started screaming at me and told me that I was the one who had ruined her relationship by sending those messages, because now he and his entire family think that her parents are thieves and frauds, and she must have been a part of their plan as well. Truth be told, she could have been very well, because she was very close to our parents. But I don't know that for sure, So, it was better not to say anything about that, and I just told her to leave again. But instead of just leaving, she started kicking my door, and she was going absolutely insane. So I decided to look out through the window and open the door just as her foot was about to hit it. She kind of lost her balance and fell forward, and it was absolutely hilarious. But I had to try really hard to keep myself from laughing, even though I had done it on purpose. When she regained her balance, it was very obvious that she was very embarrassed about what just happened, and I had completely thrown her off her game. So she couldn't even start yelling at me once again, because I had her right where I wanted. Very politely I told her that I was sorry that she was going through so much right now. But she had never been nice to me, and that's why I believe that she knew about what our parents were up to. And that's why I reached out to her fiancé, without speaking to her first. But now what was done was done. And the only thing that she could do was speak to him and try to get him back. Fighting with me was not going to get her anywhere, and I hope she understood that, because I really didn't want to call the cops on her and create more trouble for both her and myself. I just wanted a peaceful few days, because after that, the legal procedures against our parents would start, and I just wanted to relax before that, so I would be adequately prepared. After that I thought she was going to leave. But she just started looking even angrier, and she told me finally that she had actually known about what our parents were doing with the loan and how they had made me the co-signer without my consent, and she had no issues with that. But the stupid bank had decided to contact me to verify, instead of just automatically approving the loan, and that threw their entire plan into jeopardy. Even right now, the reason her fiancé had actually broken up with her was because she had told him the truth, because he couldn't understand why she was still keeping in touch with her parents after everything that had happened if she didn't approve of what they had done. So eventually she was forced to tell the truth, that the so-called fight that she had had with her parents was stage 1, so that I would feel guilty and would at least go easy on them. But now that she realized that she stood to gain absolutely nothing, she did not see the point of lying anymore, and she had already lost her fiancé. She didn't care about anything else, so she thought that she might as well tell me the truth. And that's why I think that I don't need to regret anything that I did. Everyone deserves everything that was coming to them, and I'm gonna make sure that I don't go easy on my parents at all. It's just really sad how they failed both their children, and now, neither me nor my sister seem to care about them in the slightest. But whatever, this was a long time coming, and I'm glad that we are finally getting to face off right now. I'm also happy that my sister finally told me the truth, so I know that my entire family is rotten. Update 3 Hi. So 3 weeks have passed since my last update, and I'm really glad to inform you guys that my parents have decided to come to an out-of-court settlement with me. Obviously, it's gonna be a lot of money, and we are still negotiating with our lawyers about how much they want to pay me exactly for me to drop the lawsuit against them. But one thing for sure, they're going to be paying for it. I wish they could have been a way for me to get back at my sister as well, but honestly, I'm not interested in revenge anymore, because I think she got screwed over enough when her fiancé left her. Because from what I know, she has decided to skip town. I'm not even joking. 1 week after her fiancé dumped her, and they announced that they were separating, a bunch of my family members and a couple of her friends told me that she had decided to leave everything behind and move to Colorado. It was a weird and sudden move. But the few friends who knew what I had done decided to blame me for it, and told me that I was going to be punished for what I had done. Well, shiver me timbers. I can't wait, but the bottom line is that at least the situation with my parents is coming to an end, and I wouldn't say that it's been sorted out. But at least I'm gonna get some closure, and I'm gonna be able to move on. Because having to see them again and again was eating away at me, and now it's finally coming to an end. It feels really weird, knowing that I'm probably not going to be seeing them again anytime soon. Most of the family has no idea what has happened between us, and I intend on keeping it that way. But I know for sure that whenever they're going to be attending any family events, I'm not gonna be there. Only a couple of close cousins of mine know what's really going on, and they have told me that they want to make sure that any family gatherings, they don't invite my parents. So I know that I wouldn't have to see them unless I run into them by accident, and weirdly enough it feels a little empty. But I'm gonna move on, and I'm gonna get over it. And now that the legal situation has come to an end, I'm gonna quit my job, and since I'm gonna be getting a lot of money, I'm gonna start my business immediately. I don't have to wait for anything, and from now on it's just onwards and upwards.